Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Town Council monthly meeting with public hearing and an executive session for the town of Dewey Beach. It's being live at the Dewey Beach Life Saving Station as well as via Zoom. Today is Friday, March 15th, 2024, and it's 3 o'clock. With that, I'd like to convene the town meeting with opening ceremonies to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with
Next item is the roll call. Commissioner Persinger.
Here.
Commissioner Jasinski.
Present.
Commissioner Givings.
Here.
Commissioner Bauer. Present. And Mayor Bill Stevens also present. We have a quorum. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
May I ask for committee reports? Commissioner Persinger.
Yes, the Climate Change Committee is scheduled to meet on April 13th. We're hoping to get that committee going again and get some interesting work going. The Charter and Code Review Committee is still looking for their next meeting date, but the chair of that committee did organize a very, at least in my view, a very helpful teleconference with some officials from FEMA, so that we can begin to continue to look at this issue of building permits and whether or not there's some efficiencies that can be built into the process. As I say, it was a very informative and a very helpful call, and I think it's going to provide some real benefits to us in terms of the town's participation in the flood insurance program. And that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Jasinski.
Oh, sorry, no updates. Sorry about that.
Sorry. Commissioner Givings.
Investment Committee will be adding a new member today with council's approval.
And Commissioner Bauer.
Budget and Finance, we're done until the fall now. So I think we're good unless we want to do some interim reports. And then marketing, the Dewey and Bloom project is taking off very well. I think we have 10 or 11 of the 17 planters spoken for, purchased already. So coming along good. So we're looking for volunteers and people to keep them up to date and water them. They have reservoirs in them, so you don't have to water them every week, like every 2 weeks. So it's I think it's going to dress up the town. It's going to look nice, something we all can be proud of.
Great. All right. And for the Council of Commissioners, please, just as a reminder, to get the dates of all future meetings on the calendar and get those to Kate so that they can be properly reported out going forward. May I have a motion for the approval of the February 16, 2024 minutes?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Not seeing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town manager update.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if you notice, the chief isn't here tonight. She'll be here at the meeting. She'll be working tonight 6 to 2 and tomorrow night 6 to 2. That's where we want her. We want her out with the folks tonight. We'll have a total of 13 full-time officers out tonight. Then there'll be a combination of both Alcohol Beverage Commission folks there and also fire marshal folks out. So we'll have over 15 police officers out there tonight and tomorrow night. So I want to thank those organizations for coming in to assist us. The paving project that's supposed to start in March, I haven't gotten a definite answer yet from DelDOT. It may get pushed to the fall. As soon as I get an update on that, I'll let everybody know. And that's paving the state streets in the town of Dewey Beach. And out of the 21 streets we have, if you count Bayard Avenue, 22 streets we have, the state owns 19 of them. So that project was supposed to start sometime this month. They can't give me a firm date. I'd rather have it done in the fall than in the spring, but we'll wait and see. As soon as I get the information, I will put that out. I'm meeting with DelDOT on Monday. Jim Dedes and I are. We're going to go over the public safety initiative they're having here in Dewey Beach over the next 2 years. We're going to look at the number of signs that are on Route 1 and see which ones can be eliminated and which ones need to be replaced. Kate, if you could bring up that picture of Dagworthy Street. If you notice as you look down Dagworthy Street, these dumpsters have been there for years. I've worked it out with Warren Nelson, who's got our trash contract. We will no longer have those dumpsters there on the street. If you look at it now, those dumpsters are gone. If you go to the next slide, Kate. Yeah, they're gone now completely, and you will not see them back. We've been able to work it out with Warren. where we were able to eliminate those because the garbage from the beach was going into those dumpsters.
Right.
And if there's any questions, I can explain that later. But those dumpsters are now gone. As we do the Living Shoreline project down there with Center of the Inland Bays, and then we do the DENREC 22,000 upgrades on Sunset Park, it'll be nice not to have those dumpsters down there. Next picture is the EV station. So as you can see, we're moving forward with the EV station out here. The chief did a really nice job getting the grant for all this. This is the power that's going to go out there. The next thing that you'll see go in between now and our April meeting will be the actual EV chargers. There'll be one charger station with 2 hoses on each side. And then we expect the vehicles to come in sometime in June. More to follow on that. Lifeguard tryouts, the first one is this Sunday at 11:30 here at the lifeguard station. Then the next one is on 3/24 at 11:30, and the following one is Sunday 4/7 at 11:30. So anybody that's interested in trying out for the lifeguards, come on out. We have about 30 recruits that have put in for it.
Is there an age restriction?
There isn't. We had somebody
My age? Thanks,
2
Bill.
years ago. Yeah.
Gotta learn how to swim.
Can we bring up the picture of just real quick, Kate, so if you look, last year I put a couple hundred bulbs in the center island. Those are starting to come up. As we go through and we get the new landscaping contract, we hope to improve on that. If Kate could just bring that up real quick. I'm sure everybody has seen those. And then you could just see the daffodils and tulips that are coming up there. And then on the Bloom project, as Commissioner Bauer alluded to, if you want to contribute and donate to Bloom, you just go to the town webpage and you go under news, and it's right there. You can go in. If you have any questions, you can call Laura or Kate or I, and we'll walk you through the process. But we're very excited about the Bloom project. I will say that we are not allowing any plantings or boxes on the center island. It's just too dangerous to have people going back and forth on the center island with all the traffic that we have. So we're going to leave them off to the sidewalks where we still have enough for folks to get by on that. And then with that, I'll turn it over to Jim Dedes for a 5G update, sir.
Right now, we're working on Collins Avenue, and we've been dealing with some new people involved with Verizon and CTC. They've gone into the portal. We've made some modifications as a result of CT's intervention, and I'm hoping sometime in the next couple of weeks we'll be ready at least to start the initiation to move the pole. Our goal is obviously to have it moved before Memorial Day. There is we're working on a proposal to relocate Collins. There were some errors made on that, and we're working on that with CTC to relocate the pole on the south side of Cullen, about 40 or 50 feet, and that's where we are right now.
Thank you, Mr. Dedes.
One last thing, Mr. Mayor. So on Reed Street, for the flaps that are being installed, Remington and Vernick, our engineer firm, said the parts still are not in. So they have not installed those yet. They hope to have them in by the end of the month. And on a more positive note, the $1 million that we're working with the Army Corps of Engineers, Senator Coon's office, has been approved again out of, there's several different steps we have to go through. I sent that to you and to the other commissioners to review. So hopefully in a year or so, we will get that, and we can use that money also to make improvements on Reed Street. Pending any questions, that's all I have.
Council, any questions for town manager?
No.
No.
All right. As town manager made a comment, the chief is going to be working a night shift tonight. So we have no police chief updates unless you sent them ahead with you.
No,
Okay. I'll open up for, this is from the agenda perspective, we're going to open a public hearing to go over several elements that we're talking to, but I'll open it right now for any public comment. If anyone here would like to come up and speak for any reason at all. Sure. Sir, may I ask if, only because we're recording, if you can come on up, state your name, address, and your comment.
Yeah, I hope this is the right time for me to speak.
Absolutely. There's no bad time.
Okay. My name's Joe Conoscenti. I live at 1013 King Charles Avenue. And I had written a note to all of you guys about my concern about the Sunrise Restaurant opening at 9 till 3 in the morning on Friday and Saturday. My main concern is not with them. They're not doing anything illegal. They're doing what the zoning allows. And I spoke to Bill a couple of weeks ago, I guess it is now, and suggested I write to you guys. And he said these laws and I guess times were put in 2004, I believe.
2004 ordinance 509.
Yeah, so, I mean, a lot has changed in Dewey since then, and a lot has changed even where we are, in that used to be you had commercial on the ocean with the hobo, you had the siesta, which looks like that's going away right now, and only the sunrise. And what my main concern is that what we're going to get coming there to eat between 9 and 3 in the morning. What I'm afraid of is people coming out of the bars, being loud and boisterous, and how are we going to do that? I also had a couple questions relative to, are people going to be able to eat outside? You know, that's a question. I mean, because we have residents right near us, residents behind, residents across the street. I've seen things on Facebook, people talking about bring your own bottle. Is that going to be allowed in those things? Let me see what else. I made a couple notes here. You know, considering some of the things we had going on here last summer, you know, we had some shootings going off in the town. We've had some trouble at some of the bars and whatnot. The point of bringing that up to what is basically a residential neighborhood is what really concerns me. You know, I guess the main question I have is, if the bars are closing at 1, do we really need anything open at 3? And basically asking, can the council, or however this goes, I don't know all that, can we take a look at these zoning laws and see if what was done in 2004 is practical today? And do we need that? I mean, I think a lot has gone on, because where we are, we hear it all, we see it all. But with the invention, or I guess the popularity of Uber and Lyft, if they have that here also, has made a lot of difference in people coming by with the noise, because people are now getting a ride out of there and doing that. And I'd hate to see a lot of that come back. I mean, and I know you guys are restricted on resources too. I recall one night we had a terrible incident next to us at the siesta, and not getting into that, but just the ability to respond and get that done so people can sort of live peacefully is where I'm coming from on all this, and would hope that you guys would take a look at it and consider it. And let me be the first to say, I have no idea what goes involved in all that stuff. So in fact, I mean, we've been neighbors with Jim for as long as his family has been there, Jim and Chris, and we've never had any complaints. I mean, we've had some, not issues with them, but issues with some of the people there. I mean, you don't know how many beer bottles and beer cans and broken bottles that we pick up on a normal weekend, and just don't want to see that sort of come back and more of that. So
Understood.
if you have anybody has questions or anything.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Come on up. Hi.
I'm Cindy Souza, 113 West Street, and I just would like to bring up one more time about the permeability and the building codes, where it is allowing structures to be built to the maximum, and then with driveways being built with pools and then non-permeable surfaces around it. And it really is just creating a continued issue with water runoffs, et cetera. So I am pleading with you all to take a look at that very seriously, whether it means restricting what is the definition of a permeable surface. I would start there. I don't think that the pavers that we see in most of these driveways right now is really permeable. And what do we do about that? Is a pool considered, is not part of the permeable or non-permeable ratio? So does that count now, et cetera? So I'm asking, please take a look at that.
Thank you, Ms. Souza.
Thank you.
I'll just state for just from what you said, sir, and from a process standpoint, is we take notes on everything that comes forth, whether it's via email or in person, and build up a body of information so that we can look into our charter and code to see where we are and how do we improve upon things and what needs to happen for the future of the town. So it's on the list. Okay. Anyone else here? Kate, anybody in for?
Yeah, I think we have one comment.
I don't like the way this is looking. Can we turn off the camera, please? Whose idea was the windmill? Thank you, honey. And thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it.
The wind kind of helps with the other chemicals.
Super appreciative. Thank you so much. Huh. All right.
Here, let's smile.
You're in deep.
You're gonna tease us like that and then take it away?
And you guys are next. I don't normally get embarrassed, but thank you so much. I am blushing. I can feel it. All right. Any other public comments? All right. But thank you, everyone. Sincerely, thank you. All right, let's open up for the public hearing. Do you want me to open up, Fred? Should I read all through them, all the public hearing, or just go one at a time? How would you prefer this?
Well, that's up to
All right.
you. If you'd like, we could do one at a time.
All right, that's fine. We'll do one at a time. The first open public hearing is public hearing on ordinance to amend Chapter 185-21 smoke detectors of the municipal code relating to smoke and carbon monoxide detectors as recommended by Planning and Zoning Commission. So, is there anyone here for public comment in regards to that? Or online? All right. Public hearing on an ordinance to amend Chapter 185-51 accessory buildings and structures of the municipal code relating to impervious service requirements as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. No, you're fine. Is there anyone else, Kate, on?
You have one on Zoom.
Okay, bring them in.
Edwin and Sandra.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's great. This is Ed Schoenfeld. I'm here with my wife, Sandy Schoenfeld. And we wanted to comment upon the impermeability issue. We've seen the text of the potential changes that was in a committee meeting a couple of weeks ago, I should say. And we have questions about the clarity of the items that are considered permeable versus impermeable. That's number one. And number two, we have we saw that there appears to be an effective date that goes all the way back to approximately 2009. Sandra, why don't you explain that?
Yeah, my understanding is that from a certain date forward, that the people who do not conform to whatever the requirements are would have to either change that, or we're not clear on that, or would it, in other words, is there any way to retroactively put something to an effect, or would these requirements for whatever the impermeable surfaces be only from the date that the ordinance is adopted going forward?
So just to summarize, our questions deal with the definition, deal with a couple of things. One is the definition of impermeability, and we particularly think it's an issue dealing with AstroTurf and what is impermeable and what is not AstroTurf, because our next door neighbor here on Jersey Street does have a significant part of their property covered by AstroTurf, which results in the runoff of rain from their property down to our property. And secondly is what Sandy just was describing. We have a concern about what happens in the case of properties which are clearly in violation of what's ultimately determined to be permeable versus impermeable. Would there be any action that they would be forced to take if what they have does not comply with the town's requirements? And what would the enforcement mechanism be?
Thank you. All right, it's on the list. Please stay tuned. All right, any other comments? All right. Number 3, public hearing for an application submitted by Stephen Montgomery for the Starbird located 2009 Highway 1, Dewey Beach, Delaware, for temporary expansion of premise for the event Starbird opening weekend, March 15th to the 17th. Excuse me. Huh. Would you like to make any comments?
It's hard to throw you a surprise birthday party if you put it on any earlier.
Anyone here for anybody want to make comments concerning the opening weekend? Anyone online? All right. Public hearing for an application submitted by Stephen Montgomery for the Starbird located 2009 Highway 1, Dewey Beach, Delaware, for temporary expansion of premise for the event Running of the Bull, June 29th, 2024. Again, I'll ask if anyone's here for comments or online. Public hearing for an application submitted by Stephen Montgomery for the Starbird located 2009 Highway 1, Dewey Beach, Delaware, for temporary expansion of premise for the event Dewey Goes Pink, October 5th, 2024. Going once? All right. With that, we're going to close the public hearing and get into the action items. The first action item, discuss a possible vote on ordinance to amend Chapter 185-21 smoke detectors of the municipal code relating to smoke and carbon monoxide detectors as recommended by planning and zoning. Commissioner Persinger, do you have anything that you want to comment on?
Yeah, just a couple of things here. This was drafted basically, this all started with interest from the town in doing something about carbon monoxide detectors, in addition to smoke detectors, which were already covered by the code. The material that has been added here is consistent with the state code. And there's one line right at the end of the section that's highlighted yellow that says consistent with Chapter 66C, Title 16 of the Delaware State Code. I don't think that necessarily was intended to be a part of the ordinance here. Maybe there's nothing wrong with it, but it was just, a note on one of the drafts that went through here just to indicate that this was consistent with that section of the state code. I don't have any other comments regarding this, but if there are any questions, I'll try to respond to those.
Any questions, council? Or questions from the public? Not seeing any, Gary.
Okay.
So, Commissioner, could I just add that you're correct. I think that language was identified during the Planning Commission review of the ordinance as being instructive, but not meant to be inserted into the code. So the final draft of this that gets signed shouldn't have line 59 as made part of it.
All right.
Perfect. Okay. With that, can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. David?
Aye, yes.
No, I got you, Gary. David, I don't hear. Did he freeze?
I'm good. Aye.
Okay. All right. Number 2, discuss possible vote on ordinance to amend Chapter 185-51 accessory building structures of the municipal code relating to impervious surface requirements as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Again, I'm going to call on you, Commissioner Persinger, but if you can also address the Schofelts, who I think I got the name correct, in terms of the clarity or the definitions as it relates to this possible revision.
Yeah, first of all, there are two versions of this. One version does not have definitions. The second version does. So I would restrict our consideration here to the second version. That's American. And I think there was an earlier comment about this too, from was it Souza? Did I get the name correct?
Yes.
Who also asked about the impervious or pervious surfaces. This also grew out of it some interest from the town. They had some concerns about the specificity of what was included in the existing code. But I will say that the current code already says no portion of any building lot area developed with a residential use or a commercial or a mixed commercial and residential use in any district of Dewey Beach shall be covered or paved with impervious materials. So to the extent that there are any situations out there where some part of a building lot has been covered with impervious materials, that's the way the code is written. Enforcement and regulation of this is really up to the town staff. What the Charter and Code Committee and then the Planning and Zoning Committee tried to do was to provide a little more general definition to this thing, so we were talking clearly about any ground level surface. There are a few examples here: driveways, parking spaces, and sidewalks. But any other structure that's not directly under roof would be covered by this as well. There is an exception. Swimming pools, obviously, I don't think could be a swimming pool if it was constructed with impervious materials. So it has to hold water. But there was some concern that there be an allowance for a walk space around the pool, basically just to keep the pool clean. But it could be no wider than 3 feet, and that surface could be constructed with impervious materials. The definitions are pretty self-explanatory. The alternative to these definitions would be simply to rely on some general language that's in the definitions section of the code under general provisions, where it says that if the term is not defined, you basically rely on definitions or explanations that you would find in any standard dictionary. I think it's probably preferable to have specific definitions in there for these terms, but that's really up for the town council to consider. That's all I had.
Thank you, Commissioner Pritzker. And I do believe, looking to Fred for confirmation based upon the Schofield's comments, is that while there's clarity on the permeable versus impermeable, I do believe that the AstroTurf, if it's not permeable, would fall obviously into that category. Mm-hmm. But I do also, that the date of the ordinance goes into effect is the date that it's signed, that there isn't a retroactive requirement.
Right.
Okay. Any comments?
Could I add just a little bit to the pool?
Sure.
So I believe it's building code, it might be state law, that pools which are permitted in Dewey Beach are required to be improved with a minimum 3-foot walkway around them. So I don't think you can build a pool without a walkway of at least 3 feet, and that's a safety issue for getting in and out, particularly getting out. I think you can't be closer. You can't have a pool, for instance, that's up against a fence that would prevent you from getting out of the pool where the fence is. So if we have pools, then we have to have these minimum 3-foot walkways. So it's an exception to the impervious surface prohibition that's currently in the code.
But is there any reason why the 3-foot walkway could not be pervious? According to code?
Well, one of the comments was that I guess it could technically be a pervious surface. A pervious surface, though, would usually what's used is concrete.
Right.
And that keeps soil not from entering the pool. They now have technology, apparently, that to some degree will allow a concrete-like surface to be permeable. It's very, very expensive, apparently, but it's highly desired typically to have concrete surrounding a pool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Dawn will make a comment on the AstroTurf question. Dawn Hinks.
Ms. Hinks?
You're muted.
Put a dollar in the jar. Or is it a quarter?
I got 50 cents and that's it. When it comes to applicants wanting to put in AstroTurf or artificial turf, it depends upon the manufacturer. Many times manufacturers will state that it is pervious. However, I do not accept just what the manufacturer states. I require documentation that shows the perviousness and the rate in which water will perk through that particular product. And so with that, that is part of the permit application and documentations that go in whenever that kind of product is put on the ground. However, a lot of times folks need to remember that unless they get a soil scientist to actually evaluate their ground and the layers of their ground surface, then many times it's not the product that goes on top. It is the ground in which it is installed. So whenever pavers, things of that nature are installed for, let's say, a patio, around a pool, things of that nature, then I recommend what I believe it's the International Concrete Company gives a diagram of the layers underneath that need to be installed so that the product, the top product, can sit on there and have the water drain down through and create as best as possible a pervious surface. However, because we here in Dewey have a groundwater problem many times, sometimes that makes it difficult. But when it comes to artificial turf, I require documentation of their product that they want to put down.
Thank you, Ms. Hanks. Ms. Souza, did you want to make another comment?
So if I'm understanding you correctly, there has to be a 3-foot perimeter around a pool so that people can get in and out. Is that 3 feet? What if that comes up right next to the fence? Or the lot line? I mean, is that acceptable? It's an open question. I'm not asking for an answer right now, but I mean, is that acceptable? Because then that creates runoff going into neighbors' yards, et cetera.
So there are setbacks that apply to the location of a pool.
To the pool.
So a pool, depending on what yard the pool is proposed to be in, it can't be closer than a certain number of feet to the lot line. And that would prevent, in all cases, a pool being located as close as 3 feet to a lot line.
But then can the walkway around it be within that if that's 3 feet and you're 6 feet, are you 5 feet away from the lot line? Are you?
Yeah, I think the setback is to the pool, not to the walkway. But I think the setback and Dawn knows the answer, but I think the setback to the side.
She's the fountain of information.
Yeah. The setback is going to be greater than 3 feet, but I'll let Dawn answer that.
Okay, well, it's a question, but then I think we also, I'm still going to go back and ask the question, what truly is permeable when it comes to driveways and patios and things like that? Because we're at Seaway, you know, we're at with very little room to operate when it comes to water here. And I think that we really have to take a look at how much of our lots we're allowing to be built to the max. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Souza.
The answer about setbacks.
Dawn, do you have an answer about? Yes, Dawn.
When it comes to swimming pools, they have their own kinds of setbacks. Pools must be a minimum of 10 feet from the property line to the water's edge, from the side yard, excuse me, and then from the rear yard, it has to be a minimum of 6 feet from the property line to the water's edge.
Thank you, Ms. Hanks.
No, make a comment.
Yes, of course, Gary.
You know, we all certainly share the concerns that were just expressed a few moments ago about trying to prevent as much runoff as possible and to have pervious surfaces. I think we've had a lot of discussion about whether or not we should have a specific list of materials, and you know, there just isn't any guarantee that whatever list we come up with is going to be specific enough or comprehensive enough that will be able to handle all the concerns. I think the feeling of the committee and that we've had in some of our discussions is that it's better just to generally define what we mean by pervious and impervious. And that is, it allows water or other fluids to pass through it. And as Dawn said, when she gets an application in for something where there is a surface that needs to be considered in terms of whether it's pervious or impervious, she has to do as much due diligence as she can to ensure, in fact, that it is a pervious material that's being used. I'm not sure what other guideline or guidance we could offer at this point.
So
Commissioner Jazinski?
I didn't do, someone did the balloons for me. I didn't do the balloons. I think that may have been my clerk helping me out a bit. So I kind of wanted to key off what Dawn said, and then Ms. Souza started talking about a little bit, and that was evaluating the degree of permeability. And when I first read this ordinance, that was kind of what came in my mind as well. Is, I'm going to use the term percent, and that's not how you measure it, but is 1% permeable enough, or is 50%? And I know you measure it differently, but the question is should we in the ordinance be requiring a degree of permeability rather than just saying it can't be impervious? Because what I don't want to see happen is someone says that because the surface they put in lets an ever so slight amount of water through, that it's no longer impervious and you have to approve it. And the first thing I'd like is Ms. Hink's interpretation of how she tries to deal with that issue. If she's still there.
Yep, she is.
Yes, I'm still here. Whenever I receive about a product, I look at the documentation and I require the applicant to give me the documentation, and it must come from the manufacturer. At this particular moment, I cannot give you an example of a manufacturer and the permeability rate. However, what I did do was look at what it stated and compared with other third-party agencies what they consider to be a good permeable rate. And if that product fell within that parameter of what other agencies would say constitutes something permeable, I would consider it. Yet at the same time, just because a manufacturer states their product is pervious, unfortunately, no doubt with the rate that you've stated, if 1% allows it to go through, the manufacturer is going to say, oh yes, it's permeable. But is that sufficient enough to allow a major rainstorm to perk through as easily as possible? So it just depends upon the manufacturer, and what I find with other agencies who are more familiar with that kind of situation.
Right. So apparently there is some type of standard that state agencies, you kind of alluded to this, use to do permeability, and they're more doing it with roads and sidewalk surfaces, right? And Commissioner Persinger spent some time on this, already. So I don't want to kind of jump the gun here, but what I'm kind of wondering is, from Fred's perspective, do we need to be specific in the ordinance that what people need to do to comply, or can we leave it up to the building official to determine it? Because I just don't want us in a situation where someone takes the slightest amount of permeability and says that works.
Mm-hmm. So it is a catch-22. I mean, the more specific we are, the better we can enforce our restriction. The more specific we are, though, the more likely it is, for the reasons that Mr. Persinger identified, somebody could get around the ordinance. So because it's not comprehensive, our ordinance might not be comprehensive enough to capture new technologies. I would say, I think that it is a general definition of impervious surface would include a reference to whether or not the surface allows for the rainwater to be readily absorbed. So I think 1% is not going to equal a standard that could be described as readily absorbable, or words to that effect. So I think we're probably going to have to monitor this, and hopefully we can come back in the near future with better language, that there's some kind of a standard that is observed that we can incorporate into our code without missing, without wreaking havoc in one regard or another. Would also say that if somebody were to contend that their application was denied and challenge that the challenge would be an appeal from an interpretation of the zoning code made by a building official, and that goes to the Board of Adjustment. So obviously, we don't want to invite those scenarios either.
Just to be a little bit obvious on this, one of our goals from a council perspective is to always evaluate not only what we have in the code, in charter and code, but how do we improve upon it, and how do we make it current as to where we are today, and to take these things into consideration. To Fred's point, while this may pass today, we will continue to look to how do we improve for what's best for Dewey moving forward. Any other comments or any other council questions? Givings? No, nothing? Is there a motion to approve the ordinance as written?
Mayor,
Yes.
one clarification. Are we talking about approving version 2, which includes?
Yes, sir. Version 2 with the definitions.
All right. Then I move that we approve version 2 of this draft ordinance.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, or any conversation? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Discuss a possible vote on an application submitted by Stephen Montgomery for the Starbird located at 2009 Highway 1, Dewey Beach, Delaware, for temporary expansion of premise for the event Starbird opening weekend, March 15th to the 17th, 2024. Mr. Montgomery, would you like to make a statement? No, thank you. Okay. All right. We're all familiar with these events, for those of us that have been here for 100 years. So any comments from any of the commissioners before I ask for motion?
I have a comment. We probably need to make this process easier. If we're going to do it every year, it's the same thing over and over again. As long as this event's been going on, and Dewey Goes Pink and Running of the Bull, I mean, it's been going on for years, and we sit here and approve it every year. Mm-hmm. Is there a way we can make it a 5-year approval or 10 or something? Mm-hmm.
Well, would the date stay constant? That would be the change. So maybe it could be a recurring calendar event for the January meeting.
Like a recurring event, we're making a recurring approval for this type of event. As
Well,
long as there's no substantive changes to what's going on.
The issue that we have right now is how we posted this in terms of what's out in the public. So for this event only, or for the next few things, it's for this year only in a 1-year contract. We will look in off season. According to our code, what can or cannot be done in terms of multiple years, as well as how do we collect if there's any comments of anything negative happens, and how we can address that. So with that being said, can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That was close, Monty.
They would have chased us down the street.
Discuss and possibly vote on an application submitted by Stephen Montgomery for the Starbird located at 2009 Highway 1, Dewey Beach, Delaware, for temporary expansion of premise for the event Running of the Bull, June 29th, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can we have Jason Kelsey come?
Aye. Number 5, discuss and possibly vote on an application submitted by Stephen Montgomery for the Starbird located at 2009 Highway 1, Dewey Beach, Delaware, for temporary expansion of premise for the event Dewey Goes Pink, October 5th, 2024. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Number 6, discuss and possibly vote on a resolution to approve the town landscaping contract. Town manager?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we posted an RFP for this. We had 3 different companies put in for it, and I recommend that we use Toolscape Poolscape Incorporated, and James
Dreamscape.
Jones,
Dreamscape.
Dreamscape Pools and Patios. And James Jones is here to answer any questions, sir. James?
Does anyone have any questions for James? Thank you for coming to Dewey. And for my birthday. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right.
I did have a question
Go ahead.
about the scope of the work and wondered if it included watering the central area around the Dewey Wave.
It does not.
Does not. Because I know that's been a struggle in the past.
Any other questions by council? Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Number 7, discuss possible vote of resolution to approve the town beach raking contract. Town manager?
Yes, sir. So Nelson Warren from Rehoboth Beach Surf Raking was the one individual that put in for this RFP. He's here today to answer any questions.
Does anyone on council have a question? Well, anyone here for public comment? I should have asked that before. Okay. Does anyone have a question for Mr. Warren? Council? Not seeing any. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Mr. Mayor, both of these contracts with these RFPs that went out this year, the town will be saving substantial amounts of money with both.
Love it.
You could have said that beforehand.
Might have changed our vote.
Number 8, discuss a possible vote on a resolution to approve the addition of 2 banks as approved institutions to the town that may utilize it for its banking needs. I'm going to give a little background to this. A year and a half, 2 years ago, for my full-time position, I was approached by my bank about possibly converting to having overnight sweep accounts, which end up producing a significant amount of interest income that we were able to generate. For my company, we actually then approached our current bank with that as an opportunity. Ms. Hall, I believe it's generated over $300,000 in interest income this year so far, or is that pretty close? It led us to the concept of, what other banks are doing, what other banks have, what are the other, how do we increase our interest income, how do we decrease our bank service costs? So while we may not have needed to do an RFP, that it could have been done purely from a town perspective, we decided to put it into an RFP process and went through a really extensive search. Requirements were put out there, whether that be for training, whether it be able to handle quarters, whether it be for processing of credit cards. We received several back, and what Town Hall is asking here is not to remove Fulton from the bank, but to add, what are the other 2 additional banks, which is Community Bank and WSFS, as possible banks that they can advantageously transfer funds and or use their services. With that, I'll open up to anyone from the public that may have a comment. And to council.
I have a
Yes,
question.
Gary. Yes, Commissioner Persinger.
There was a question raised earlier today about this, about the RFP for this, as background for this resolution. I've never seen the RFP. I try to get access to the RFP online. Apparently it's password protected for some reason. I'm not sure why that is, why it's not readily available to the public. The question for me, the question that was raised prevents me from being able to be able to vote on this today without an answer to that question. And so my suggestion is this be tabled until we can have a chance to review the RFP and answer that question, unless someone wants to address it today.
Well, your Commissioner Persinger, your comment is that we're not able to review the RFP, and how would we do that today?
Because of the question that was raised, I was not able to review the RFP and satisfy myself that there was not a concern that should be raised about going forward with this resolution.
I'm unaware of what question was raised, sir.
I think the town manager probably is aware of it as well as anyone. Is that true? I'm trying to get back to my email. But the issue was there apparently was a question in the RFP regarding special rates that might be proposed to provide to town employees. And I don't know if that was part of the RFP. That raises some concerns in my mind. Maybe there's some other information or material in the RFP that would, assuage that. But it seemed to me a serious enough question that I wanted to raise and get some resolution to it.
Well, I'll ask Ms. Hall if she has a response to this.
Yes, when we put this together, I sent out a request to all the HR towns, the contacts I had, and says, is there a banking RFP? No, I had one except Newark. So I took Newark's and I removed a bunch. And yes, that was in there. And it was basically, are you going to treat our people nice? Every year I get a thing from Fulton that says, and they do this for all their businesses, and I'm sure all the banks do it. Hey, any of your employees going to sign an account? We're going to give them $100. All the banks do it to try to get new employees, especially with summer. There was nothing to try to get us anything special. It was a question that was in the Newark RFP, and I just didn't remove it. I did remove about a third of their RFP,
Okay.
and that's what was left.
I think where Commissioner Persinger's going, and Commissioner Persinger, I have no problem if we need to table this for a month, but to talk about it. I think his concern was that we have decided to add banks as a result of there being favoritism or some treatment for the employees, but it doesn't sound like that was part of it at all. I can tell you, Commissioner Persinger, the reason why we're adding these, or what the conversation I have in this hall, is that this is not going to be hey, Monday we're transferring all of our services over to one, that this will be a slow transition as we move forward. So I'll leave it. How would you like to go forward with this, Gary? Would you like us to do it until April?
My concern is that if any of this notion of special rates for town employees was a part of the evaluation criteria for deciding which banks we might want to do business with, that seems to me problematic, and I'd like to be assured that that is not in conflict with the prohibition against kickbacks that's in our town code. And so maybe it was not part of the evaluation, but it was in the RFP. And so I would just like some assurance that we're not in some sense violating our town code, and it's not something that at best it gives the wrong appearance, and at worst it violates our town code.
Ms. Hall.
The items I looked at was fees. That was the first thing. Then I requested from the banks what our interest rate would be. That was the second. The third thing was, is the team that would help transition local? Do they have a local branch? If you didn't have a branch within 5 miles of Dewey Beach, sorry, you were out. If your transition team was not in Sussex County, you were out. I needed to be able to have somebody to be here at any time. And so it was money for the town and what was going to be convenient for me and the other employees.
Did either of the proposals for either WSFS or Community Bank include language that would give advantageous loans to the employees of Dewey Beach?
Honestly, I did not look at that section. I went and looked at the things that were going to affect
For the operations of the town?
Yes, sir.
The two big ones, sir, were the fees,
right?
How much they were going to be, and the interest rates. Those were the two things we looked at.
I feel confident to give you assurances, Commissioner Persinger, that it's purely based upon cost savings and income generation. But again, I respect your opinion, and if you want us to table this in April, I will.
No, I think we've had a public explanation of the factors that were used in selecting these two banks, so I'm comfortable with that assurance.
Okay. May I get a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Discuss possible vote on ordinance to amend chapter 80-13.1 personal use quantity of marijuana to align with recent changes to the state law. I'm going to ask council, this is not going to be a vote on this tonight. I think there's more information that needs to come forward, but I'd ask council to get us up to speed on the importance of making this amendment.
I'm sorry, I was working on another project here,
Okay.
trying to
I'm
move.
not billing us for it, I hope.
Well, I'm trying to move the ball along on another matter that we were dealing with today. Yeah, so we have a code provision that establishes that use of personal use quantities of marijuana subjects someone charged, if that's the right word, to a civil fine. That's in our current code. And then state law has come along and since been amended to permit, under certain circumstances, the use of personal use quantities of marijuana, essentially decriminalizing them. And we believe decriminalizing use of paraphernalia that would be used in connection with personal use quantities of marijuana. But the conditions are that they not be used in a public setting, which we're working on, which we're in the process of defining, and that the law would apply, or the exemption would apply to people of 21 years of age or older. So we need to marry up our current code to what the state law, the decriminalization of the personal use quantities, and that's turning out to be a little bit more complicated than it initially appeared. So every time we make an adjustment to the code, we find there's another exception out there that we need to deal with, and we have yet to finalize that. So I'm totally confident that this ordinance will be ready to vote on by our next meeting, but we have some additional work to do to get it there.
If I could, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
so just to make it very clear that we, right now, the town of Dewey Beach is following the state law when our police officers are out there. If you're under the age of 21, you cannot possess marijuana, you cannot smoke marijuana in public, period. If you're over the age of 21, you can do it in your domicile, your rental house, it has to be an ounce or less. And that's the law that we're following right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we need to be consistent with state law.
I agree.
Whatever the state law is, we follow the state law and we aren't gonna have issues.
then can I have a motion to table this to a future?
And if, as we work on it, or as you work on it going forward, the B possession of paraphernalia is confusing and inconsistent. So that's one of the places definitely needs work. But yes, I move that we table it.
Motion to table, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, number 10, discuss possibly vote to appoint Eric Nelson to the investment committee. Eric Nelson's bio it's on the website as an attachment. I have no issue, or if anyone from council has an issue. Not seeing any, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Discuss and possibly vote to reappoint Julie Johnson to the Board of Adjustments for a term of 3 years.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Discuss and possibly vote to reappoint David Shuey to the Board of Adjustments for a term of 3 years.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Number 13 from the agenda. Discuss a possible vote to include the following amendments to the town charter and a package of proposed amendments to be considered by the state legislature. Just as a brief overview, we are looking to submit for a resubmission of the charter at the end of this year, which needs to be ratified by the state legislature. And we are going through, if you know that in prior meetings, we approved the hiring of a consulting firm to assist in cleaning it up.
Yep.
And this is an attempt to, before that, look at areas of the code that seemed either to be inconsistent or conflicting in terms of the language or duplicative. Gary, do you want to add anything else to the overview before we get into the A's, A through F?
No.
Okay. The first element is to remove duplicate language from Section 8, organization regarding budget requirements and process in favor of language in section 22, town budget C.
Motion to approve.
Should we do this? Go ahead, Gary.
Well, yeah, I had a comment about this. I don't know how you want to do this. You want to do each individual?
Do them one by one, then we can comment on each one.
Yeah, why don't we do one by one and comment on the ones that move forward?
All right. Again, these are recommendations that come from the Charter and Code Review Committee, and we, had some discussion about all of these at our last meeting. The issue that I want to raise with respect to the first one is that in putting together the language in these two sections of the code, I eliminated a sentence here that says, this is the second sentence of the existing code under section 8B3C. The salaries or compensation of individual employees or officers must be consistent with the staffing plan approved as part of the annual budget process and are set by the appropriate department head with the approval of town manager. What that sentence does is in essence kind of lead you toward a requirement to have the individual salaries of employees as part of the budget process. I deleted that as a proposed change here to rely just on having a staffing plan so that we, when we go through the town budget, we would understand how each department is staffed, but not have a requirement there that would require the salaries of each individual employee. We would know overall what the expense of operating each department would be and the salaries associated with that in the aggregate, but we would not focus on the salaries of individual employees. So I want to raise that for discussion to see if there is disagreement with that. Should we add that sentence back into the consolidated language that's in section 22, or is this fine?
So I did notice that as well, and Gary, I appreciate you kind of highlighting that. So, this kind of ties also a little bit into the issue we talked about during our budget amendment discussions of when we approve a budget, how much authority does the town manager have to kind of shift money around? And, getting down to a line item level, it can be pretty onerous for a town manager to try to manage his budget and have to go back for approval to shift any funds anywhere. But on the flip side, we don't want to really just have an overall expense budget and say you can spend it any way you want up to the, whatever the total of the expenses are. So I think that this is a good middle ground. In some of the smaller departments, I definitely think it clearly makes sense to say that, your code enforcement office, your budget is this, right? The only question I would have is in some of the larger departments like police, it may not even matter depending on, kind of how things go there. May all be kind of dictated by a formalized agreement anyway, but some of your larger departments, you certainly would have a lot of different salaries in there that the commissioners would have no say in what those individual salaries are. And I don't know how other people feel about that.
Commissioner Gibbons or Commissioner Barrow?
I think it's a good middle ground. I mean, I think it's fair. I mean, we don't want to get into the micromanagement of every penny that gets sold. I mean, there's, but monitoring, and I agree. I mean, we got to be, I don't want to hamstrung anybody to do their job. So I'd be in favor of this one.
No objection.
Gary, I like the change of eliminating this. We do go through a roll-up process. We go through what are the needs in town hall from a public safety, from a services perspective. We come to a finalized number without having to go line by line. So it's a good amendment.
Okay.
Should we, why don't we go through then on to B, and then we can make it as one motion?
One motion.
And then let's discuss B, which is add parking administration to the list of responsibilities in section 16, responsibilities of the town manager. It seems somewhat self-evident.
Yep. I don't know why it's not there now.
I don't know.
We had assumed it was there.
All right.
It is now.
Any conversation? All right. In section 17, audit committee, auditors provide authority to town manager to terminate the contract with the auditor with concurrence of the audit committee. Just as a little bit of a background, in this previous year, we had our auditor resign from services. They were actually, the person was leaving the firm that they were with, and they were the only municipal auditor, and it made no sense for us to stick with a firm that did not have that capability. So we sought an additional RFP to allow them out of the contract to get an additional RP to get a qualified auditor in. And this is just basically simply stating that it's working with the audit committee to move forward with that clarification. Gary, do you want to add anything else?
No, I think you summed it up.
Any other questions on that change?
Sounds good.
All right. In section 19, police force, chief of police, beach patrol require that any candidate for chief of police without certification by the Delaware Council on Police Training complete necessary training for certificate within 1 year or other mutually agreeable period as a condition of employment.
I think we should have always had that.
I agree. So any conversation on that?
Where did you see, where did you see the 1 year?
Section D on the agenda.
It says 6 months in the.
It's 6 months in the draft,
Oh,
I'm not looking at the agenda. So I think we must have a mismatch there.
Okay.
so 1 year needs to be 6 months.
Well, I believe it should be the opposite.
Yeah.
Well, the question is, I don't know what a reasonable time period is. I don't remember what the chief's schedule was. I put in 6 months in what I wrote initially, and maybe I wrote the initial agenda item and just forgot what I had written initially.
I doubt that.
No, I don't.
If I remember,
is a year more appropriate?
I think a year is more appropriate because I believe that if it was a normal training period, I think she was going to complete what needed to happen in 9 months. That she was able to complete it in 4.
We were lucky we had the assistance of the Dover Police Station. Our chief actually got involved and was able to get her through that academy in a very speedy way, which we were very fortunate. We may not be that fortunate the next time.
The timing of the proof, those classes are.
So I'd ask that we possibly approve this, but make that change from 6 months to a year.
So
Yes,
section
that's good.
19B should
Okay.
be 1 year.
Yes.
Yes, that's good.
All right.
E, in section 19D1, require that the beach patrol captain serve under a contract of no more than 3 years. This is, I believe this is actually in our code, but whether it's been enforceable or whether we've done this in the past.
Right now, it says the captain of the beach patrol may serve under an
May
employment.
serve.
So this would make it a requirement.
Okay.
We have the same for the police chief, so I
Correct,
think in my contract's the same. So.
Right.
Consistent. Okay.
And F, remove redundant language regarding the town's power to borrow money in section 23, remuneration of powers A through 10 in favor of language section 26, borrowing money or issuing bonds. Again, this does not change the ability for the town to borrow up to $3 million. It's just consolidating redundant sections of the code. Any questions?
Right. Just one comment about that. The figure of $3 million, that was increased, I believe, from maybe $1.5 million in the previous town charter. And the Charter and Code Committee at that time had actually recommended $3.5 million, and we backed it down to $3 million. We may possibly want to revisit that before we go forward with a full package of amendments. So I leave that open as a possibility. Again, we don't know what the indebtedness might be with respect to the new town hall. Yeah, I just want to bring that up for consideration, that we may want to come back to this.
Agreed. With that being said, can I have a motion to approve the agenda item 13 for the changes on the town charter, A through F as discussed?
So moved.
With the changes.
With this 1 year.
1 year change.
With a 1 year change and the reduction of the first paragraph under section B3C under the organization.
Okay.
Motion and second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Could I just,
Mr. Mayor, can I make one more comment on this?
Yes, sir.
We have some other charter issues, as you know, that some of which may require a workshop. Some of them may get resolved. There's some pending legislation that may resolve at least one of the issues for us. And there are a couple of other things, one of which is the maximum fine that could be charged by the alderman. There's a consideration of increasing that. And, we had some discussion last time about the interaction of that limitation that's in the charter with the fines and other sections of the code, specifically with respect to our tree ordinance. So I think I still need to do some more thinking about that. I'm probably going to propose some language on the tree ordinance to see if that will work within our existing charter, as well as how it would work if we increase the maximum fine that the alderman could levy. So those are just some things we need to deal with in the next couple of years.
And Commissioner Persinger, if, as we have the meetings coming up in the next few months, if there are other elements of the charter that you would like us to address and/or want to get on the calendar to do a workshop, please feel free. I think
Okay. Yes.
good use of time.
Right.
So with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. We'll give you the
If I could just
No.
emphasize one thing.
Go ahead, sir.
So that made it seem like we were moving pretty quick through changes in the law, but I just wanted to remind everyone, we're not changing the law at all. We're making recommendations that we're batching together to send to the state for consideration, because our charter is state law. We don't have the authority to amend it. Only the legislature can, and we would not be amending our code in that fashion.
Till the state approves.
Great. All right. The February financial review of financials are also available for your review. I have obviously gone through them. I have no questions. Anyone from the committee have questions? All right, and I'm sorry, from the public or from council?
Thank you, Sheena.
I would ask anyone who's interested to look at page 17 of the financials. I think it gives a good overview of how the town is operating with 1 month left in its fiscal year. And just as a summary, through our amended budget, we had expected to have $626,000 of income before set-asides, and we're at $1,063,000 or $437,000 positive. So it's we're doing well. I'm going to ask for comments. Commissioner Bauer.
All right, Dewey and Bloom. So, we're looking for volunteers. We're looking for some more donations for some of the streets. And, the big thing is trying to pull this together so we can get this stuff ordered and hopefully get it installed in, beginning of May. So it's going to look nice and pretty for Memorial Day. So if you could pass the word on, I'm looking for ambassadors on every street. If everybody can take care of their street corner, this thing's a success. So the more we can do there, I think the better. But go on a town website, and there's a link. If you just want to volunteer, you want to make a $5 donation, or you want to buy one of the planter boxes, whatever you choose to do. I think it brings the community together. So I think these are all good things for us to do. There's a couple issues at the state level that I want to bring up to everybody's awareness. The short-term rental tax is still on the table and getting pushed. I know our state representative that represents us is against it, but that doesn't mean he's going to win the vote just because he's against it. So you got to take a look at the people sponsoring the bill. And for those who aren't aware, it's 8% in addition to whatever the 3% that the town charges. So we'll be going from 3 to 11. And I think if you rent your house, you're concerned about that. So
House Bill 168.
House Bill 168. So make your voices heard on that. I make it heard, and but if we get 100 voices or 1,000 voices saying the same things, maybe it gets through to some of the people that want to get it approved, because that money gets spread out all over the state. The money that they collect here goes all over the place. It doesn't stay here. So that's one. And then the other one is there's a bill, I forget the number, but it's on non-resident voting. So again, we allow residents to vote and non-residents to vote. I think, my personal opinion is if you own property here, you have a stake in this community, you should have a vote. But if the state changes that, then it doesn't matter what I think or anybody else at this table saying things. So make your voices heard now. Don't assume that it's going to just go away, or there's people pushing it to get it done that way. So call Pete Schwarzkopf and call Russ Huxtable. Let them know what you think. So anyhow, that's all I got.
Commissioner Gibbons.
I just would like to wish everybody a safe and happy opening weekend. It's nice to be back at
We were
opening
never
weekend.
closed.
I was here year round, but Other people think we close down.
Commissioner Jazinski,
No comments.
Commissioner Persiger.
Yeah, the second piece of legislation that Commissioner Bauer mentioned would not allow municipalities to have corporations or other artificial entities to qualify as voters. The corporation certainly would include LLCs. I think the question is, what is an artificial entity? And the question that's been raised is, if an artificial entity includes property that's held in trust, that could have a huge impact on the voting population. It would require my resignation from the council, because that's exactly the way my property is held, is in trust. So that's one comment. My second comment is simply happy birthday to the mayor. And I'm wondering, is my piece of birthday cake going to arrive by UPS or FedEx?
It can, or I could leave it on your doorstep.
It's called Uber
You know what?
Eats.
I will put it in the refrigerator for the April meeting, so you can.
Okay.
I appreciate that. And Commissioner Persinger, you're not getting out of council that easy. It just means you can't vote. You can still run.
Oh. Question is how far?
We went through this not long ago. From my own perspective, I just want to say it's very similar to Commissioner Bauer's comments. On March 21st, all of the beach town mayors are heading up to Dover to meet with our representatives to discuss the fact that for the first time in a long time, DENREC is challenging whether or not the municipality should be partially responsible for beach nourishment, and therefore having to pay every 3 years or contribute every 3 years. We've hired a lobbyist to help fight this. We have looked and had at the University of Delaware prepare an economic research that clearly shows that the communities that are the association, the 7 towns, coastal towns, generate over $8 billion to the local economy. And therefore the money that we are generating should go back into preserving the asset that not only our state and our community enjoys, but the rest of the community. One of the things that I would challenge Kate with and got the information back recently, as most of you know, I like data, but the data points are that here in Dewey Beach, roughly 48% of Delawareans, that's people in Delaware that are enjoying it. That's followed by Pennsylvania, Maryland, and DC, racking up 93% of the people in Virginia that are the people that own here, and only 2% from New York or New Jersey. So, again, reach out to Pete Schwarzkopf or to Russ Huxtable to try to get this ended so that we don't have to figure out how to pay for beach replenishment every 2 to 3 years, being that we provide so much to the community. With that, we're going to convene executive session, so I'd like to put things on pause so that we can have any of our guests grab a piece of cake. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess, please.